All right, welcome to the Train Your Brain for Success foundational lesson. Now, there's a lot of reasons that people sign up and dive into this training. Some people, they want to make more money. Some people have realized that they're plateauing in their career and are ready to make that next level and realize that everything they do isn't going to get them there any faster. Some people want to get a better handle on their relationships. Some people just feel like they're scatterbrained all over the place and just need help focusing. And these are all great reasons to dive in. But fundamentally, the people who use the information that you're about to learn are using it to make a lot more money. They're using it to experience a higher level of energy and focus in everything they do. And they're using it to reduce the amount of unwanted stress that comes with their day-to-day. So if any of those are of interest to you, stick around because you are going to love what I'm going to share with you. I'm robbz, and for the last decade, I've had the privilege of traveling all over the country, doing live in-person trainings, and in the last couple of years, a lot of virtual trainings, helping people really understand what it means to train their brain for success. Specifically, we're helping people learn how to manage their mind and their thoughts in a way that's going to help them get the best results possible. So what that looks like is three main areas that we're going to talk about. Number one, we're going to talk about how your mind creates your life. That's going to be the gist of this first lesson in the Train Your Brain for Success foundational series. We're going to talk about three specific mechanisms by which your thinking, your attitude, your approach, your mindset, your focus just really help you understand the role that those mental factors play in creating the reality and the results that you experience every single day. Our next lesson is going to dive into your brain's unhelpful default settings, meaning a lot of people have a lot of stress and strain and challenges in their day-to-day. And right, wrong, or indifferent, it's not 100% your fault. It has a lot to do with the way your brain is hardwired. Your brain comes shipped from the factory with some default settings that if you're not paying attention to these things on a daily basis, and some people I meet, it's more like an hourly basis, it's virtually guaranteed that you're going to stay stuck. You're not going to achieve your goals. You're not going to reach your potential, and you're going to have quite a few roadblocks and speed bumps along the way. And then finally, we're going to wrap up our session by giving you 4 big strategies. These are things that you can be focusing on, that they're proven to reverse that. They're proven to get your brain working for you instead of against you. So we're going to get to that down the road. But for starters, I want to talk a little bit about the idea of how your mind creates your life. Because if you're not paying attention to this, you're likely experiencing one of these situations that we hear about all the time with our clients. Have you ever had the situation where you've met someone for the very first time? Could be a social setting or a business setting, but you meet this person, you get their name and you shake their hand, and not 5 seconds after that handshake breaks, that name has just vanished. It's gone into midair. How does that happen? Right? It happens as a result of these unhelpful default settings. It happens as a result of you not paying attention to your focus. Right? Another situation we see showing up for a lot of people, it has to do with their learning style. Have you ever found yourself reading something? Again, could be for personal, could be for business. But you get to the bottom of the page, or maybe even the end of the paragraph, and you realize that your mind had been elsewhere and you had no idea what you just read. I know, it's frustrating. Are you a rereader? You ever done the thing where you try reading it again, you get halfway down the page and you're frustrated with yourself? And if you're the kind of person that doesn't enjoy reading, it's likely because of this situation, because your brain, it's looking for distraction. It thinks way faster than you can read, and it's looking for more. So listen, these two things, the names thing and the reading thing, they can cause you some problems, but understand that the same hardwiring in your brain that's causing the names thing and the reading thing to happen, it's also causing this other situation. And this is where the learning is going to start for you. Have you ever had the day where you worked hard? I'm talking from the minute you punched in to the minute you clocked out. Like, you worked so hard that by the time you got to the end of the day, you were done. You were out of energy. You were out of gas. You had nothing left in the tank for the people or the things that mean the most to you. Yeah, you're was it yesterday? I know people all the time, yeah. I'll take it a step further. That day is not fun. But have you ever had that day where you worked and worked and worked and worked to the point where you were ragged and you had nothing left for your kids or your partner or your friends? And then you took 5 seconds of me time, you look back on your day and realized, wow, I got nothing accomplished today. Yeah, that's not fun. So listen, with all these situations, the names thing, the reading thing, the having that day thing, there's good news and there's bad news. The bad news is, in our 20 plus years of working with professionals in a multitude of industries, we've found that there's no upper limit to the number of times those tendencies can happen to you. Right? There's nothing in your brain that goes, I'm going to forget 3 more people's names, then I'm good to go. Right? There's nothing in your brain that says, okay, 2 more worthless days this week, and then I'm clocked in for the rest of the quarter. No, you can have that day we talked about every single day for the rest of your life, if you let yourself. Now that's the bad news. The good news is you're not a slave to your brain. As a human being, you've been blessed with the ability to train it. You can overcome these default settings. Therefore, you can get your brain, you can get your business, you can get your relationships, you can get your health, you can just get your life to look like, do, and be exactly what it is that you want it to. And that's what we're going to cover. The first component to understand with regards to training your brain for success is the idea that your mind creates your life. Now, this probably is not a new concept to you, and to be honest with you, it shouldn't be. It's not a new concept at all. You hear about this in places like the Bible and the Quran and every piece of ancient scripture ever written. Every thought leader, every motivational speaker you've ever heard, they've all talked about this in some capacity. So I don't want to burst your bubble, but I'm not going to sit here and go, hey, I got this great new idea, your mind creates your life. It's just not new. What is new and what's applicable in the last couple decades or so are 3 specific mechanisms by which your mind creates your life. Number 1, your focus determines your reality. Number 2, what you see is what you get. And number 3, what you see is what you look for. So with your focus determines your reality, what this means in plain English is what you focus your mind on, what you focus your thoughts on, will create the reality you live every single day, be it positive or negative. Now, there's a lot of really in-depth, nerdy ways we can discuss this and illustrate it, but fundamentally, what this means is that if you think about positive things, you're going to have positive experiences. If you think about negative things, you're likely going to have negative experiences. One of my favorite exercises to do in a live setting, and it plays out in a situation of training like this as well, is I want you to just play in my sandbox for a second and just think about a problem that exists in your life. All right, so see that person, see that credit card bill, or see that conflict. And just notice how it feels to have that problem exist in your life. Okay, let's hit the reset button. Try this one out. I want you to think of something that you're genuinely grateful for. Right? See that person. See that toy. See that experience. That thing that brings you gratitude. And notice how it feels to have that exist in your life. Now, I know that was a very brief exercise, but I'm betting it was very different. I'm betting that when you focused on the problem and you really paid attention to what was going on, you may have shrunk down in your chair a little bit. Right? You may have had a furrow on your brow. You may have just felt heavy and dark and yucky. And then on the flip side, when you focused on that thing that brought you gratitude, you may have sat up straighter. You might have a smile on your face right now. You might actually feel peaceful and energized and bubbly. And it has everything to do with your focus determining your reality. Understand that thoughts become things. When a thought happens, a story runs, and you respond to that story. So when you have a negative thought, it actually sends off a whole unconscious chain reaction of thoughts revolving around negativity and frustration and anger and blame and shame and guilt. You actually have a whole chemical reaction take place inside of your body. And it manifests, that thought, that feeling manifests itself in how you feel and how you show up in your day-to-day. On the flip side, when you focus on something you're grateful for, that sets off a whole unconscious chain of thoughts and chain reaction revolving around enthusiasm, gratitude, love, joy, and excitement. You have a totally opposite chemical reaction take place inside of your body. And it manifests itself in a totally opposite way. You show up energized. You show up excited. You show up with a smile on your face, and that shows up in the interactions you have with other people. This is where the most successful professionals I work with, this is where they really explain to me, and we validate with each other, that positive mental attitude, it's not touchy-feely, sherry-carry. It shows up in the bottom line paycheck. I mean, we've got story after story, example of people who just make the decision to show up with the right mindset. And it's amazing how much faster they're accomplishing their goals. The money's coming out of the woodwork because of their shift in their attitude and their focus. So number one, your focus determines your reality. Number two, what you see is what you get. What this means in plain Jane English is that the pictures in your mind tend to become the results that show up in your life. Athletes are the people that get this at a super high level. If you're watching an elite level athlete, if you're watching Olympians or PGA Tour golfers or NBA or NFL or MLB or WNBA, people who get paid ridiculous amounts of money for doing something in the sporting world, you always see them doing something very specific before they compete or perform. They're visualizing. Specifically, they're visualizing the perfect shot, the perfect run, or the perfect routine. Athletes practice visualization because it works. They know that they don't have a super high margin of error, right? They miss that putt by an inch. That's a payday, the difference of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars. Professionals who follow and understand and practice visualization, they know that it works as well. Instead of walking into the contentious meeting going, I hope this goes well, when you can visualize the outcome that you're looking for, you're going to have a much higher likelihood of you achieving the outcome you're looking for simply by taking the appropriate amount of time and visualizing the result you're looking to get. What you see is what you get. Finally, what you see is what you look for. So if what you see is what you get says that the pictures in your mind tend to become the results that show up in your life. What you see is what you look for basically says that the pictures that show up in your mind, they're the ones that you condition yourself to see. They're the ones that you've literally trained yourself or trained your brain to be looking for. And I love this one. This is my favorite mental component of what it means to train your brain for success, because this is fact. This is brain science in action. This has to do with a part of your brain called the reticular activating system, which is a couple different parts of your brain that act as a filter. And it's on all the time, but when the switch gets flipped, it allows you to focus on and see the important things, and it tunes out anything irrelevant. You've seen the reticular activating system in action if you're a mother, or when you think back to when you first found out you were pregnant, you probably saw pregnant women everywhere, right? They were there the whole time. You had just never been aware of it. It was not important to you until you yourself were pregnant. If you've ever made a decision to buy a new car, right, you get super clear on that specific car you want, and all of a sudden, you see them driving around everywhere. Well, it's not like the manufacturer shipped everything here into your market and put them on sale. No, they were there the whole time. You were never as excited about that car. You were never aware of it. Okay? Here's where the rubber meets the road with what you see is what you look for. This shows up in your attitude. Because you know your attitude plays a massive role in your ability to be successful. You have to pay attention to people, observe people. Have you ever noticed that the people who complain a lot always have plenty to complain about? Yeah, and then have you noticed the people who are living the charmed life always have a lot of really great, exciting things happening to them? It's not a coincidence. If you want to find the bad stuff, can you find it? You bet. If you want to find the good stuff, can you find it? You bet. What you see is what you choose to see. So these three mechanisms, your focus determines your reality, what you see is what you get, and what you see is what you look for. Understanding that is the big lesson from understanding how your mind creates your life. From here, we're going to address the big 800-pound gorilla in the room, and that's the fact that, yes, your mind creates your life, and your brain is hardwired to totally get in your own way. Hopefully at this point, you're really starting to understand how business, how relationships, how life can just be a lot easier, a lot less stressful, and a lot more enjoyable when you understand how to control your thoughts, how to better manage your mind and your thoughts so that you can get those better results that you're looking for. We also started to dive into that first component about understanding what it means to train your brain for success. We talked about how your mind creates your life, and there were those three mechanisms that we discussed. We talked about how your focus determines your reality, or what you focus your mind and your thoughts on will create the reality that you live every single day, be it positive or negative. We talked about the idea of what you see is what you get, or having a clear picture for the results that you want to achieve in your mind so that you can actually get your brain looking for how to achieve those. And that was through the third mechanism, which is what you see is what you look for. And that's the idea training or proactively be looking for the things that are going to put you in line or on the path to achieving success. So I'm hoping at this point you got a really good understanding of the big role and impact that your thoughts have on your reality and the results that you get every single day. So now what we're going to do is we're going to talk about, I mentioned earlier, the big hairy 800-pound gorilla in the room. You've heard me talk about this a little bit. It's, yes, your mind creates your life, and then your brain, it's got what we call some unhelpful default settings. Meaning your brain is hardwired to focus on a couple of key things that if you're not paying attention to these on a daily basis, it's virtually guaranteed that you're not going to achieve your goals. You're not going to hit your full potential. You're probably going to have some bumps in the road, and it's not going to be as fun or as easy as it could be. So there's three main, big, giant, unhelpful default settings. Three big pre-programmed hardwirings that are going on in your brain that we're going to talk about here. And before I dive into these, I'm realizing that the picture I'm painting is not awesome. Please understand that these are not character flaws, okay? You are not a born loser if, as I'm going through and introducing these, you're going, oh my gosh, I've got that one, and I've got that one, and Tom from my office 1,000% has that one, right? We are all human beings. We all carry this conditioning, which is really good to know, because if you carry this conditioning, that means that you know that every single human being that you interact with also carries this conditioning. So it's really good to know how other people's brains operate when it comes to influence, when it comes to selling, when it comes to just getting along with people. So the first unhelpful default setting that your brain is hardwired is your brain is hypersensitive to negativity or negative inputs. And it's almost numb to positivity or positive inputs. And before I go any further, what I want to reiterate and reinforce the idea that these are not character flaws. What they really are, they're survival mechanisms. Right? Think back, if you were trying to survive in the wilderness, or if this were the caveman days, these would be fantastic tendencies to have because they're going to keep you alive. So now let's go back in and talk about your brain is hypersensitive to negativity and it's almost numb to positivity. Reason being, if you're trying to survive in the wilderness, if you're back in the caveman days, the things that are perceived as negative inputs, think about this, they're really negative. Right? They're a grizzly bear or a saber-toothed tiger that's trying to eat you. Or it's weather, or it's famine, or it's another tribe or organization that's trying to take over your land. So the human being or the individual that's more aware of the threat can more readily deal with it. They're simply going to last longer. So the challenge for us today is that this tendency, this hardwiring, it's buried deep in our brain. It's almost in our DNA, this fight or flight, this survival mechanism. Our challenge is that our definition of a negative input, it's just totally different today. Today, what our brain perceives as a negative input is when someone says no to our offer. Right? You put a proposal together for them and they look at it and they're like, no. Or you ask them to come in to sign the contract and they're like, no, I changed my mind. Or think about it. Like, what do you need to think about? Or I need more information. No, you have all the information. There's no more information to give you. And what happens is your brain, it sees this as a threat. And it's like, why are you trying to kill my business? And that's simply not the case. Right? Another time, like this is a business sense, I'll tell you another time is if you go to Starbucks or your favorite coffee shop and you order that lovely, very Italian sounding, but not Italian at all drink, and you take a sip and you're like, oh, this is terrible. This barista is horrible. This coffee sucks. Right? It's the same thing. Right? It's your brain's definition of a negative input. This is a big time challenge for us. And then the other big challenge, from my perspective, is that we simply live in a culture that totally supports this hardwiring. We live in a culture of negativity. Right? You think about this. If you turn on the news or you pick up the newspaper, it literally starts with the worst thing in the world. Like, if it bleeds, it leads. That's how they structure news reports on TV. So we're simply surrounded by this. And it's not just the news. It's social media. It's any article on the internet. It's politics. There is no shortage of places where you can see firsthand the idea of this culture of negativity. So your brain, it's like a moth to a flame when it sees that negativity. So be paying attention to this. Listen, if the only thing that you do just a tiny bit better or different after watching this video is you just focus on being the most positive, enthusiastic, solution-based person most of the time without being annoying, I'm going to say that you're going to have a pretty good run at it, right? From a sales perspective, sales is simply a transfer of enthusiasm or a transfer of excitement. So if you can be the most positive, enthusiastic, solution-based person, you're going to make a great career. The challenge is if you're always the most positive, enthusiastic person all the time, people are going to think you're weird. And I know this because this is me. I'm the guy that normally gets the "what's up with Positive Pete" response when I walk into a room. But here's the thing, eventually, when you stay true to yourself and you're aware of the fact that people are always looking, your brain's always looking for negativity, and you become this beacon of positivity, you become the individual that people need in their lives. Eventually, they're going to figure out that you're onto something. And I've got a lot of track record of this. I'm blessed to say I've got well over a decade of experience of being able to say that when you're on fire, people will come from miles to watch you burn. So pay attention to that. Your brain is hypersensitive to negative inputs, and it's almost numb to anything positive. Okay, the second unhelpful default setting. This is that your brain, it's easily consumed with the urgent, often at the expense of the important. Okay? Your brain, it thinks 7 times faster than other people can speak. You're watching this video and you're probably doing 2 or 3 other things. It's totally normal. Come back to me. Because here's where you're going to pick up a ton, and this is where you're going to get a lot more efficient and effective in what you do. Because your brain is designed to multitask, it's always looking for what else is going on, and oftentimes people have the squirrel phenomenon going on in their day-to-day. Reason this is, here's why. Let's go back to the surviving in the wilderness analogy, or the caveman analogy. The things that are negative, these are the grizzly bears, these are the saber-toothed tigers, these are the other tribes that are trying to take over. Like, your brain is focused on whatever pops up in front of it right here, right now, even if what you were working on was more important or even more fun, right? This is, if there's a grizzly bear on this side of the river, it's way more of a threat to you than the grizzly bear on the other side of the river. Because if a grizzly bear wants to eat you, it wants to eat you now, right? It's not calling ahead. It's not sending you an Outlook invite. Would you like to be eaten Tuesday at 4? Click to confirm. No! It's hungry, it wants to eat you now. It is urgent, and I gotta pay attention to this, even though I gotta build a shelter, I gotta gather some food, I gotta build a fire, I gotta take care of my family. Super important, but this grizzly bear, super urgent, and you end up focusing on that. The challenge with this one is that your brain doesn't understand the difference between activity and productivity. So what happens for most people is they end up bouncing around from crisis to crisis, from urgent matter to urgent matter, and they're exhausted at the end of their day, right? We talked about this in the last video. When you've had that day where you work and work and work and work and work to the point where you're exhausted and have nothing left for the things that mean the most to you, and then realize you got nothing done, it's because you're working on all the tasky, unimportant things that popped up, and you likely didn't put any effort or work into achieving your bigger picture goals, the things that were really meaningful and important to you. This is one of the biggest realizations that our clients have all the time, is they spend all their best time and energy on the things that matter the least. And then by the time they get to the things that matter the most, they're tapped, they're exhausted, they want to be in a better mindset, and they get nothing done. And when I mean best energy on things that matter the least, that's something as simple as just staying on task. The bigger challenge with this one is it's the cost of your time. Because if you think about it, how much time does it take for you to be distracted? Right? It's a fraction of a second. Statistically speaking, that thing that takes you a fraction of a second to get off track takes you 15 to 23 minutes to get back on track. So my question is this: what is your time worth? Because if you're allowing yourself to be distracted in a fraction of a second, knowing that it takes 15 to 23 minutes to get back on track, from a baseline mathematic equation, that's a 30% pay cut. So what that means is if you make $100,000 a year That first distraction, you're down to $70,000. That second distraction takes you down to $49,000 a year. Do the math. 2 seconds of distraction is a 50% pay cut. Most of the people I work with, they are not super excited about that. Guard your time, value your time way more than you currently do, because if you don't, your brain, it'll run away with it. Okay, your third unhelpful default setting is your brain craves safety over progress. What that means is your brain, it loves the path of least resistance. Your brain loves the low-hanging fruit. The challenge for us is we're not living in the caveman days. But again, this unhelpful default setting, it's buried deep. And today, it shows up in what's known as the comfort zone. Okay? You've heard about the comfort zone. The comfort zone serves a purpose. The comfort zone is the reason you make the money you make. It's the reason you eat what you eat, drink what you drink, wear what you wear, are friends with who you're friends with, do what you do. It's based on familiarity and repetitive decisions, and it doesn't require you to do a whole lot of extra thinking or doing. So it serves a purpose, and then the reality is no growth happens in the comfort zone. Right? No, you've seen the little infographic that's got a tiny little circle here. It says your comfort zone, and a big giant circle over here. It says where the magic happens. You're simply never going to grow or achieve or reach your maximum potential if you're hanging out in your comfort zone. But here's the thing. We all want to grow, right? We all want the better life. We want the better relationships. We want the better income. We want the more vacation. But in order to grow, you always have to do something that's risky or uncomfortable, probably both. And so when given the choice between risky and uncomfortable, allows for growth, but what you know is safe and keeps you stuck, by default, your brain is always going to choose what it knows is safe, and you stay stuck as a byproduct. Okay? Here's an example. You don't choose to lose the same 20 pounds over and over and over again. You don't choose to hire the team member that just didn't work out again. You choose what you know and what you're familiar with, and it holds you back and keeps you safe and stuck. I'll tell you, this one shows up. Here's my favorite and not favorite place that this one manifests itself and shows up. It shows up in your knee-jerk responses to everyday questions, right? The question I'm going to ask, and I want you to think about this, is, how's it going? And I'm betting that your knee-jerk response is, I'm good. Right? Think about that. How many people, hey, how you been? I'm good. How's business? It's good. How's your family? It's good. And then this is where, when it comes to training your brain to be more successful, there's a better way to answer that question. Your comfort zone, what you know and what you know is familiar is, I'm good. Well, stop being good. Good is the biggest enemy of great. I believe that's a Jim Collins quote. Right? I don't mean to get all cheesy motivational speaker line on you, but I will. Nobody wakes up and goes, oh man, I really want just somebody good. No, be great, be awesome, be amazing, be exceptionally well caffeinated, be well hydrated. I don't care. Just choose to do something to get yourself out of that tiny little rut that you don't even know you're in mentally. If not, you're going to stay good for the rest of your life, and that is what's limiting you. So again, let's recap. You've got 3 big unhelpful default settings, 3 main areas that your brain is hardwired to focus on. It's hardwired to focus on negativity, it's hardwired to focus on urgency, and it's hardwired to focus on complacency. So what that means is you think it sucks, you know it needs to get fixed right now, but you're unwilling to do anything to contribute to fixing it. Pay attention to these things. Understanding how these happen, how these impact your day-to-day, how these impact your decisions. That is a big key to understanding how to train your brain for success and how to get it to work for you instead of against you. So I'd love for you, I don't know when you're watching this, but think back on earlier in your day, or even think back on earlier in the week. And I'm imagining that you can find at least 3 or 4 instances where at least 2 or 3 of these unhelpful default settings were totally trying to run the show. If you can, the good news is you can train your brain. You can overcome these unhelpful default settings. There's very simple things that you can be doing and focusing on that are proven to get your brain working for you instead of against you and counteract these unhelpful default settings. Okay, I'm sorry about the cliffhanger. I'm not really sorry. All right, at the end of the last video, I told you that we were going to be talking about the 4 strategies or the 4 things that your brain needs to work for you instead of against you. So we're going to dive into that in a second, but for starters, let's recap all of the information that you've already gotten. Number 1, we talked about what it really means to train your brain for success. We've talked about how the people who utilize the information that I'm sharing with you over these videos, they're using it to make a lot more money. They're using it to experience a higher level of energy and focus in everything they do. And they're also reducing a lot of the unwanted stress that comes with their day-to-day. So I'm hoping you've already figured out at least 1 or 2 ways to implement what you've learned to get at least 1, if not 2, or maybe even all 3 of those things. And we talked about the concept of how your mind creates your life. We talked about the importance of paying attention to how your focus determines your reality. We talked about how what you see is what you get and having the importance of a good visualization skill set. So you have the higher likelihood of you achieving the goals that you want and the results you want. And then we talked about what you see is what you look for and really paying attention to and pre-programming yourself to be looking for the good, be looking for the opportunities to get what you really want. All right, so we got you all hopped up on that and goodness. And then we dove into that big, hairy 800-pound gorilla, and that's understanding that your brain is hardwired to focus on negativity, urgency, and complacency. It's hypersensitive to negative inputs. It's easily consumed with anything urgent, and it wants to keep you safe and stuck in your comfort zone. So I talked about at the first video, the bad news is we all carry this conditioning, and there's no upper limit to the number of times that these unhelpful default settings can get in the way. The good news is you're not a slave to your brain. What we know is that there's 4 key strategies, 4 things that you can focus on and implement. And when you do, they are proven to overcome these unhelpful default settings. They are proven to help get your brain working for you instead of against you. They're proven to help you achieve better, exponentially better results in exponentially less time while having way more fun. So we're going to talk about these 4 strategies, and then obviously in this video we're not going to be able to do the super deep dive. We're just going to kind of scratch the surface. But rest assured, we've got a very fun, very accessible way for you to get deeper into the lessons that we're going to talk about today. Okay, number 1, the number 1 thing your brain needs to work for you instead of against you is you need to heighten your awareness of what's most important. Now, when I talk about what's most important, here's what I'm not talking about. I'm not talking about my house and my kids and my car and my trust fund. Those are, I'm sure, important. But I'm talking about bigger picture, deeper level thinking things. These are things like your core values. What do you stand for as a human being? What are the pillars that you as a human or your business, what are they built upon? What are your non-negotiables in life when it comes to making decisions? And are you acting in alignment? Are you operating in alignment with those core values? What is your purpose? Why are you here? Not the why are you watching this video, but the why are you here kind of question. Who are you here to serve and how are you best to serve them? And if your answer is, well, I'm here to help, that's not an original answer. No one cares. Get really clear on why you believe you were put on this earth and what is the purpose that you're here to serve with your life. And then what's your vision? What do you want? Where do you want to go? This is like one of the most unmotivational lines ever. Most people don't get what they want because most people don't know what they want. Right? How many times have you been having the conversation with someone and you're asking what they want and they say, well, I don't want this, I don't want that, I don't want this, and I don't want that. And you say, great, what do you want? And they have no idea. They give you the Scooby-Doo. Right? It's not easy or fun to work with those people. Have a clear picture for what you want, why it's most important to you. Here's the spoiler alert. A lot of the things that I'm talking about, you probably already know what they are. The challenge for you today is they live back here in the back of your mind. So you need to put systems in place for taking them from the back of your mind and moving them to the front of your mind. I can tell you the folks and the individuals that we work with, Just focusing on core values, purpose, and vision allows them to make decisions a heck of a lot faster. They feel great about those decisions, and they've just got a lot more energy in every single thing that they do. So number one strategy to get your brain working for you instead of against you is heighten your awareness of the things that are most important to you. The second thing your brain needs to work for you instead of against you is you need to create goals that energize you. Energizing goals is a big thing. Now, if you're watching this video, you're the kind of person that has probably heard about the importance of goals. And then I talk to a lot of people. I work with a lot of people, and goals is a really big deal within our organization. And it's fascinating to me as I talk to even some of the highest producing people that I meet, when they talk about goals, it becomes very clear very quickly that how they're going about structuring their goals doesn't support them at all. Okay, here's what I mean. Have you ever had a goal that brought more stress into your life than energy? Right? Maybe it wasn't the right size, or maybe it wasn't meaningful to you. Maybe you didn't have it written down. Maybe someone else gave it to you. Spoiler alert, anybody else gives you a goal, it's no longer a goal, that's a quota. Okay? The reason this one is so important, and this is what people really understand when they start to structure goals in an energizing, brain-friendly way. The reason they do that is because we talked about earlier, your brain, it always wants to be distracted. It's looking for distractions all the time. A properly structured, energizing goal is the only thing that takes your brain from this to, I want this, I want it right now, let's make it happen. Creating energizing goals keeps you on track, short-term and long-term. Okay, third strategy, the number 3 thing your brain needs to work for you instead of against you is you need to create a schedule that gives you space. This is also known as the lie of time management. Time can't be managed because time can't be fired. Right? You can never go, time's slipping in my office, we need to restructure that bonus of yours. No, it keeps going. You can only manage what you're doing with that 168 hours that we all have every single week. I don't care who you are, you have 168 hours. That's 24 hours in a day times 7 days in a week. It's the only math portion of today's program. I'm fascinated when I'm talking with and meeting with people. I meet some people, I'm talking with some people that I'm like, wow, you got a lot accomplished in 168 hours. I'm pretty impressed. Unfortunately, I talk to more people and the conversation goes, wow, you got absolutely nothing accomplished in 168 hours. I'm actually a little impressed. You got to create a schedule that allows you to get your job done when you need to get it done. And as important, if not more important, you got to create a schedule that gives you space to rest and recharge the battery. One of my favorite questions to ask people is, have you ever done that thing where you woke up, you rolled over, and you realized that you forgot to plug your phone in overnight? Have you ever done that? So put yourself in that situation. Think about that. You roll over, and you realize you forgot to plug your phone in overnight, and what's the first thought you have? I'm betting it's PG-13, if not a little bit higher on the MPAA rating, right? I get a lot of colorful responses when I ask this question in group settings. And here's why. You're probably laughing a little bit about it, and people always laugh about it, but it's not fun. It's not funny. The reason that you answer that is because you know that there's only so far you can get in your day before you have to stop being productive and fix that and plug that phone in. Everything's in there. My family information, my clients' information, my calendar, my social media, YouTube, whatever your thing is, it's on your phone. It's likely on your phone. And then if it's not fully charged, at some point it's going to dwindle. You're going to have to plug into a source to refuel that. You operate the same way. Your family members can tell when you show up with half a charge. Your clients can tell when you show up with a half a charge. Right? So you've got to take the time to rest and recharge the battery. One of the great strategies that we teach with a lot of our folks is what we call the 2-hour solution. And the 2-hour solution is simply a weekly meeting you have with yourself for the purpose of reconnecting with what's most important to you and mapping out your next 1 to 2 weeks. Short version is it lets you run your life instead of your life running you. So it's about a 2-hour meeting. And if you're sitting there going, I don't have 2 hours to meet with myself, you absolutely need to implement the 2-hour solution. The people who do this on a consistent basis, they sleep better at night. right? They're not waking up in the middle of the night thinking about work stuff or remembering the stuff they forgot to do, right? And then they just operate with a lot more confidence and conviction in every single thing that they do. So you got to create a schedule that gives you space, the space to get your job done or get your important stuff done when you need to get it done, and the stuff that you want to do, the resting, the relaxation, the vacations, again, when you want to do that. Okay, the fourth strategy, the fourth thing that your brain needs to work for you instead of against you, is you got to have an ongoing system for feeding your mind. Ongoing means it's more than one event. System means it's more than one component. My favorite analogy for this is my grandfather was a crop farmer, and he was in northern Illinois, and he would come to me and say, "Hey Rob, it's a corn year," because they alternate the crops. I'd say, "Awesome, Gramps, let's do it." And so he would plant corn in the field, and inevitably two things would grow in the field. Yes, corn would grow, but weeds would also grow in the field. Now, my grandfather, he never planted the weeds. This I know for a fact. But if he didn't have a system for consistently mitigating the weeds, you know where I'm going with this. The weeds, they tend to take over, they choke out the corn, and he would get a poor yield and you would make no money at market. See, I love this analogy because your brain is the field. You can plant all the positivity you want. You can plant all the goals you want. You can plant all the time management you want. But the negativity, that grows on its own. Right? The urgency, the squirrel, that grows on its own. That complacency, that I'm good, that grows on its own. Unless you have a constant and consistent approach to feeding the good stuff to your brain, those unhelpful default settings are going to continue to run the show. They're going to continue to grow, and that is what's keeping you stuck. Here's what a really good ongoing system for feeding your mind looks like. There's three components. There's a daily component, a weekly component, and a quarterly component. On a daily basis, you're reading or listening to something positive, inspirational, motivational, or educational. And I'm giving you this information because this is what we share with all of our top producing clients. If you talk to anybody you look up to professionally, I'm betting that they're doing some version of this exact same system. On a daily basis, they're reading or listening to something positive, inspirational, motivational, or educational. We recommend a minimum of 30 minutes a day. What that means is if you have a 15-minute or more commute to your office, congratulations, you have 30 minutes a day to listen to audio programs. I don't recommend reading and driving. On a weekly basis, you need to get around a positive, like-minded group of people and learn. What that means is on a weekly basis, look for a mastermind group, join a book club, join a BNI group. Find some group that you enjoy being a part of and that you look up to and that you can receive instruction from. Here's what I tell people all the time. If you got somebody you look up to professionally, you think they're really successful, ask them to lunch. If they're really successful, see if they'll pay for that lunch. You've got to get around positive, like-minded people and learn. You've heard the line, all ships rise with the tide. Well, that only works when you're in the water. Get yourself in the water with a group, receive instruction from positive, like-minded people. And then on a quarterly basis, you need to get away. Take a day off. All right? About every 90 days, your brain needs to hit the reset button. Now, what a take a day off means, this does not mean sitting on the couch watching Days of Our Lives reruns and eating a pint of Haagen-Dazs. No, that's not productive. I'm talking about purposefully taking a day off to rest and recharge the battery, where you're taking a day to check in on the progress of your goals. You're taking a day to get reconnected with that vision. You're taking a day to get reconnected with what's most important to you. You're going for a walk, you're going for a hike, you're going for a bike ride. You are taking a day for renewal. You do those things. You do a daily, weekly, and quarterly system for feeding your mind. You're going to have a really great life from here on out. So let's recap. Number one, when it comes to the idea of training your brain for success, you've got a lot of things working against you. The good news is you now have the information and the knowledge and the know-how to overcome those things working against you. You understand how to manage your mind and your thoughts in a way that's going to help you get the best results possible. You understand how to be looking for negativity, urgency, and complacency in your day-to-day, and you now have an ongoing system. You understand what to feed your mind in order to keep those unhelpful default settings from continuing to grow.